let's talk about some of the major developments for Down to Earth this time. The very first thing is an interesting story of how smart the cultural evolution is. So we have a very exciting story from Mozambique. Now what the story is about 1860s when King Brooke, Robert Brooke along with William Wills led their first European expedition to Australia. When they were crossing the regions of the desert, they got exhausted with their food reserves and basically did not had anything to eat and survive. So what happened is their camels had died and they were having a difficult time. So during this time, what happened was there were a local group of people who were known as Yadurvandas. Now these Yadurvanda people helped basically Robert Brooke and William Wills get some food. So they prepared cakes made up of Nardoo. Now Nardoo is a kind of fern which is similar to cloves, and it is being roasted, dried and then processed, and finally there are cakes that are prepared from Nardoo. Now Robert Brooke and William Wills were not confident as to, they were feeling that they are having their full appetite but still they are starving. They were not in a position to understand what is going around. So they thought that the food that Yandurvadas are providing them is not sufficient. So they, instead of using that, tried to use the freshly grown Nardoo plants. So while they were preparing that, they realized that there is a basic concept that they need to know about Nardoo. Now what is unique about Nardoo is it has thiaminase. Now thiaminase is an enzyme that basically breaks down the supply of B1 in the body and therefore gives you a feeling of fullness, but still you constantly starve. Now Yadurvandas knew this concept and they used to dry the spores, ground it with flour and water and expose it to ashes in order to reduce the toxicity and reduce the amount of thiaminase, and finally consumed it. But these people were not aware about it, and therefore they slowly and gradually could not survive, and Robert Brooke and William Wills could not survive because they consumed the freshly grown Nardoo, which has its toxic properties. Now this is not just one of the cases. There is another interesting story similar to this about cassavas. Now cassavas are again grown similar to Nardoo, but the unique thing about cassavas is they have hydrogen cyanide in their roots. Now when they have hydrogen cyanide in their roots, hydrogen cyanide is what? When it is a cyanide, it is a poison. So definitely it cannot be consumed as such. Now this hydrogen cyanide has been a component of Zyklon B, which was one of the reasons for the death camps where the gases were used, made from Zyklon B, and it is similar to hydrogen cyanide. So what happens again with cassava is the local people actually know how to use it. So what they do is they scrap it, grate it, then boil it in liquid, leave it solid for 2 to 3 days, then again bake it and then finally consume it. So the idea is to reduce the toxicity of the cyanide compounds which are present in the roots of cassava. Now all these concepts are known only by the local people, the tribals, the dwellers, and therefore we say cultural evolution is very, very smart. So the people who were coming there did not know how to consume cassava, and slowly and gradually what happened is they developed a disease which was known as kunzu. Now kunzu is a disease where there is all of a sudden paralysis of the lower legs that is seen. And that became a common scenario in Mozambique. So those are the things that we need to focus on. The next important concept that we would understand today is SSW, that is sudden stratospheric warming. What happens is stratosphere is second layer of the atmosphere above the troposphere. Now what happened in the polar areas is there is a huge difference in the day and night, and there is higher temperature contrast that is seen. This higher temperature contrast leads to what? It leads to sudden rise and spike in the temperatures of stratosphere, which leads to warm air moving northwards from the remaining parts of the world. This event occurs 6 times in a decade, and there have been numerous phenomena that have been seen. Now, this event has been important. Why? Because we have witnessed the recent month of January, where we had more than 17 days of extremely high rainfall in Tamil Nadu, parts of Karnataka and Kerala. In Kerala, we have Kasorgod and Mallapuram, which received 100 times more than normal rainfall, and all that has been attributed to this phenomena of Arctic changes. So you can understand how the climate is so intricately dependent on one another, that the changes in the Arctic region would affect the climate of India. We would cover this class into more detail in a separate lecture. So what triggers a sudden stratospheric warming and how it actually happens is a very interesting concept. Now, similar to this, we also see that the glaciers in the Arctic region have been melting. As you can see the images of the satellite imageries, we have seen a significant reduction in the amount of ice caps that have been found. The winter Arctic oscillations, which are the atmospheric phenomena in the Arctic region, have opened large amount of waters in the Eurasian regions and the seas. This has also led to early melting, atmospheric circulations and warm moist airs that have been seen in the Arctic region. Also, there have been lot of seasonal changes that have been seen. Numerous heat waves in the region of Siberia all are also responsible for this Arctic melting. Besides that, what are some of the important topics that have been covered in India? E-waste generation has significantly jumped by 27% as per the Central Pollution Control Board, which is a very significantly high proportion. Also, as per the e-waste management rules 2016, we have seen that manufacturers are now responsible for the collection of e-waste under the extended producer responsibility, which we call as EPR, and under the extended producer responsibility, the manufacturers are responsible for the collection of e-waste. Similarly, there have been self-heating EV vehicles, electric vehicle batteries that have been made. Now, this has been a significant research that has been done by the students from Pennsylvania State University, and the idea is that a lithium iron phosphate batteries have been prepared, which has a mass market for recharging the electric vehicles in just 10 minutes. So the recharging rate would be very significantly high. The ability is to heat up quickly to 60 degrees Celsius and cool down when it is not in use. So this gives a greater exposure, a prolonged exposure for higher period, and also increases the life of the battery. Similarly, there have been numerous efforts for water budgeting that has been done. Now, water budgeting is mainly a very important phenomena in the states like Tamil Nadu. What has been done is the predominant crop there is paddy, that is rice, and it requires a lot of water. However, the females there are very fond of putting jasmine flowers, jasmine garlands, and for all temple decoration, jasmine is considered as one of the important crops. So what happened is people started shifting from paddy cultivation to jasmine cultivation, and this was an effort for water budgeting or cutting the water usage. The next important is chickpeas. All of you might be enjoying chola bhatura, and that is chickpeas. Now, chickpeas leaves are interesting because these have a slightly sour taste. Now, this sour taste is because of the oxalic acid that is present and also the malic acid that is present in the leaves. Now, this is one of the characteristics that makes chickpeas very unique. There are significant amount of macro and micronutrients that are found. In the micronutrients, iron, zinc, manganese, copper and boron are some of the major micronutrients that are seen in chickpeas, and the amount of these nutrients in chickpeas are much higher than those found in cabbage or spinach. So 100 grams of dried leaves of chickpeas have nearly 93 milligrams of iron. So it's a significantly important source of iron, and recently there have been genetic designs that have been identified which could allow the growth of chickpea crops to a temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. The next important topic is industrial revolution. We are in a phase of industrial revolution 4.0. The first industrial revolution we witnessed was based on water and steam. The second industrial revolution was an industrial revolution where there was use of electric energy, electric power for mass production and bulk production started. The third industrial revolution focused on digitization, and the fourth industrial revolution that we are entering in is the era of automation. Now, as soon as the word automation comes in, what happens is all the unskilled and informal sector jobs would slowly and gradually be replaced. So nearly 122 million jobs have been affected after the lockdown period in April 2020, as per the Center for Monitoring Indian Economy says. Now, it is believed that there could be a significant loss of 85 million jobs in India. Nearly 97 million jobs would have to be created with right skills and right vocation that has to be granted, and there would be a significant reduction of 43%, where only task specialized works would be preferred, and any skill which is not a kind of soft skill will not be utilized, because all those skills, mechanical skills or repetitive skills, would be replaced by automation. So industrial revolution 4.0 is said to affect the economy not only in the countries like India but across the globe. But definitely a country like India would be one of the worst affected countries, the reason being a huge amount of manpower and unskilled labor present in the country. The next is vaccines in India. So definitely India has started its vaccination drive with Covaxin and Covishield. There have been numerous developments that have been seen so far. Let's say the recent development of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, that is Covishield, says that this is not successful against the new mutants from South Africa. Similarly, there have been reports of death from Norway, from Israel. We have cases of facial paralysis that have been seen after administration of vaccine doses. The long-term effects are still unknown for these doses. And amidst all these things, which is considered to be one of the biggest immunization drive in India, there have been questions raised about this is the biggest clinical trial, because the Covaxin did not went through the phase 3 trial and it was brought into the market directly, and it was considered as one of the biggest clinical trials. Now, such controversies are not just part of a country like India, but there have been global controversies for vaccination. A good example is from Indonesia. Now in Indonesia, WHO asked for the genetic sequencing of the H5N1 strain of the avian flu. Indonesia government said that they are not willing to provide it. The reason that they cited is that WHO is trying to suppress the countries which are underworld, which are basically less privileged countries, where the population cannot afford the vaccination, and these companies, they blame WHO for bringing in high cost vaccines to these nations which their population actually cannot afford, and therefore Indonesia government right away claimed that they do not want any genetic sequence that they would be providing from their country. However, this had a huge controversy because this was against the norms and was a violation of the scientific cooperation across the globe. So there have been lots and lots of debates in and around vaccination. The next is a very interesting topic, and this is turmeric. Now, turmeric is known for its antiseptic properties, but Udupi turmeric is unique. Under the IUCN classification, it has been classified as a critically endangered species. Now, Udupi turmeric is grown in very few regions. There are less than 500 sections of these turmeric varieties that are present. The most important cluster of the 6 clusters that are there, 3 of these clusters lies close to the the Gomteshwar region, where you have the Mahamastaka Abhishek festival that occurs every 12 years, and it's believed that because of the human interference, this Udupi turmeric is slowly and gradually losing its ground. Again, there were studies to conserve this artificially in laboratory, but the thing was that it was cultured in laboratory, and when it was brought to the field again, this variety could not survive. That means if we are trying to artificially conserve the variety of Udupi turmeric, it is not possible. These are actually small plants of 12 to 15 centimeters. They have short rhizomes, as you can see, that are present, and this is one of the plants which is considered as the smallest species of ginger family. It resembles as similar to a ordinary grass, usually grown in the month of August and September, and flowers are like monsoon lilies that could be seen. Now, this was earliest discovered in 1976 near Udupi and got its name as Udupi turmeric. This was a region close to Manipal area. Initially, it was named as Parachut Bhati after Dr. Bhati, who discovered it, but later it was renamed as Rosemary Margaret Smith. So there has been various naming classifications that have been done, and as of now only 500 plants of Udupi turmeric are present across India, which are cultivated on less than 10 square kilometers of land. So definitely a critically endangered species. Also, as we said, researchers started to cultivate it artificially, but it could not survive in the real atmosphere, and therefore conservation of this is important, and developing a detailed genetic sequence for Udupi turmeric becomes a challenging task. The next important topic is about bird flu, a very important topic. Now, bird flu, there have been 2 variants that have been seen in India this time. Those are the H5N8 variant and the H5N1 variant. Now, the northern states have witnessed the H5N1 variant, and the states of Kerala, Delhi, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra have witnessed H5N8 variant. Now, all these variants have said to come from the migratory birds. There have been huge amount of deaths that have been reported, not only in one species of birds, but it has been across all species. Pigeons have been affected, migratory birds have been affected, crows have been affected, owls have been affected. And similarly, there is just one institute, which is NISAD, National Institute for High Security Animal Disease. That's the only laboratory across India where avian influenza viruses can be tested. So the NISAD report says that the strains have been identified for the following states. Maharashtra and MP are the states where both the strains have been seen, and for the Rajasthan, Uttarakhand and Uttar Pradesh, the strains have still not been identified. India is the 5th largest producer of poultry and consumes more than 30 million birds and 9,000 million eggs every month. So there is a huge market for poultry and bird farming in India. There has been a huge inflow of poultry from the European nations that occurred, despite the fact that this flu was identified in the months of September and October in the European nations. India kept on importing the poultry, and because of the lax in the surveillance systems, this variant started to grow in India. 3 of the species have been held responsible for it. The 3 of the migratory species which are supposed to have brought the avian influenza in India this time, or the bird flu in India this time, are European pigeon, bar-headed goose and ruddy shell ducks. So those are the 3 species that have been considered responsible. The European vision is supposed to bring H5N8 variant. Now, if we look onto the table here, from 2013 to 2020, we have seen a significant proportion of the number of poultries that have been affected every year. 2015 and 16 were the periods which had a huge impact, and there were also a huge culling that was seen in 2014. 2021 is another one of the years where we have seen a significant culling of poultry, not only poultry but other species as well. Now, what have been the reasons that have been responsible for it? First was considered the fact that during the lockdown period, the income of the owners declined, and as a result, they brought the poultry on low feed, and because of the lack of nutritional value that was seen, there was a significant decline in the health of the poultries. The next reason cited is during the cold months, to keep them warm, they are kept in a closed environment, and if there is any virus that is present, it circulates in all of the species, and due to the proximity, the rapid multiplication of the virus starts and it affects the huge number of species. So that was another reason that has been cited for it. And then definitely the migratory birds that have brought the avian influenza from the Eurasian areas traveling into Asia and Africa have been considered responsible for it. In 2009, there was the Prevention and Control of Infectious and Contagious Disease Act in animals that was passed by the Parliament, but this act brings in force all the states and the union territories, but it does not provide a complete template for tracking or for mitigating the outbreaks, and also there should be some enforcement rules that should be brought about. So NIHSAD, as we said, is the only laboratory that tests the avian influenza. There are 7 diagnostic labs that have been established in India for bird flu. The location of those have been mentioned here. Those are really important. Since 2007, we have been getting assistance from World Bank for the diagnosis of avian influenza, and there has been request for construction of surveillance centers as well. However, there has been not much development, as we said, because the biosecurity measures are not up to the mark. There has been lacks in surveillance system that has been seen. Now, if we talk about the influenzas in the bird, we consider this as influenza A, B, C and D. B, C and D are the influenzas that affect one of the hosts, and they are basically seasonal in nature. Influenza A is important because it is very much dangerous and can infect human beings as well. Now, what actually happens is, when there is influenza A virus, the most common examples of influenza A virus were the Spanish flu that happened in 1918, the Asian flu in 1957, the Hong Kong pandemic, and the swine flu in 2009. Now, what happens is, there is a HA protein which is known as hemagglutinin. Now, this hemagglutinin basically determines the cell type of the virus which can enter. As with the other virus, what happens is, the influenza virus is able to attach or must attach to specific proteins which are known as receptors. Now, this could be on the cell or outside the cell, and the idea is to allow the entry, and this is where there is the root cause for the infection. So, for the influenza A virus, hemagglutinin or HA protein is significantly responsible, and this is one of the reasons where it is considered that the transmissibility could be actually high. Also, it is believed that only 1 gram of soil, if it is infected with poultry, has so much viruses that it can infect 1 million poultry. Just 1 gram of infected soil can infect 1 million poultry. Now, this virus can move through the feces, it can move through the airborne particles, and there could be various ways through which one poultry gets into contact with another poultry, and there is no other option left but mass killing, or what we call as culling. Now, there has been various strains of avian influenza, which is also known as bird flu in common language, that has been seen since 2014. In 2014, we had cases reported in China. In 2017, the first cases came from Africa. In 2019, there was a new variant which was seen from Africa moving into the regions of Europe as European low pathogenic avian influenza. And then there have been numerous efforts on part of various governments. Rwanda, which is very small country from the continent of Africa, has one health program. We need to definitely have such strong programs in order to curb the issues. The next is nature-based solutions. Now, nature-based solutions are very important aspects that we need to understand. What nature actually bestows and how we can solve the problems or or address the issues through the nature itself. So there have been a huge region where there has been a combination of rice, shrimp, oil palm cultivation that has occurred, and these are considered as primary destructors of mangrove vegetation, which constitutes to nearly 47% of the global losses in the mangroves, and is considered as a nature-based solution. Now there have been numerous hazards and how they can be addressed by the nature-based solution, where we talk about protection, restoration and management of corals, mangroves, forest, reforestation, agroforestry practices, or creating urban green spaces as some of the options. Now there have been cases in small countries like Singapore, Moldova, Chile, Andorra, where nature-based solutions have gained more momentum, and there has been a significant development and progress that have been seen. Also in Maharashtra, we have seen that there has been a huge path that has been demarcated for the bullet train, but that would be destroying nearly 4 to 5 kilometers of the mangrove stretch around the Thane Creek, and this needs to be addressed very quickly. Also, most of the flats or the buildings by one of the renowned segments of the society have been present in the regions closer to the mangroves, and government should bring in immediate measures to regulate it or check it. So there have been numerous developments for protection of mangroves, but all those needs to be brought into account at a very rapid pace, and those should be checked very rapidly. The next is the Wonder app that has been created. Now this is an app that has been created to understand and monitor the maternal health and take care for the patients. So a continuous monitoring could be done, and all the cases could be checked there and then itself to reduce the maternal deaths and the neonatal deaths in the case. So this has been a recent effort by one of the gynecologists, Nardoo, and has been promoted in many of the places within few days of being launched. Even states like Bihar are trying to adopt these apps on a statewide basis. So those were some of the developments that we have discussed in Down to Earth today. We would be covering many more interesting lectures for you. Stay tuned. Have a wonderful day ahead.